Hi guys, it's Noe. So today, obviously, as in the other videos that I do by myself, these days it is with the baby as well. So she's with me too. You want to say hi? Hi. There you are, pretty girl. Okay, so anyway, this video today, I've been gaining very positive feedback from the videos that I've been doing kind of about my perspective on adoption and that kind of stuff. But in the last video I talked about developing my racial identity, and so people were really appreciative of the things that I discussed in that, and I think people seem to be wanting more. So if that's you, then here's more. So today I actually thought that I would kind of go through my notes a little bit and talk about building cultural competency. Again, this is all material that I got from the training that I went through at work. But I think it's relevant information that is important for people, no matter what profession you are, or if you're not in a profession. Just as a human, it's important to know these pieces of information and to have this perspective. So, you know, I think the one thing that I have realized, or that has come from this whole election thing, whatever side of the fence you're on, it's been a very trying time to live in America these days. I think it's only going to get even more trying come January and come the next 4 years. But I think the one thing that I have witnessed and observed and realized is that political correctness is bull. I think that, you know, for a long time we were like, oh wow, you know, look how far we've come, and we're so progressive. We meaning like us as a whole society, and how progressive we are and how far we've come and like all of this. But in reality, we haven't. Those feelings of hatred for other races and other groups and other cultures, and ignorance and not wanting to understand, have all still been there, but they've been buried under this notion of political correctness. And so on the outset, it's been like, oh great, yeah, we are progressive, and people are starting to accept others and love others, and oh, you know, everything's hunky-dory. And then come to find out, oh no, I still hate this group, or I still hate that group, or I still feel like this group should not have these rights. And so we really haven't come any further than what we thought we were. So I guess if anything positive, if there's a silver lining that has recently come out in our political climate here, is that we are now beginning to understand where we stand with people. Because racism has not gone away. It was just buried under political correctness. So now people are feeling much more comfortable to espouse their opinions, and whether that's espousing hate or bigotry or what have you, at least I know where I stand with those people, instead of them hiding behind this mask of political correctness and us thinking that, oh cool, things are great, and then nope, really that's not how I truly feel, but I'm just saying this to mask, to be more socially accepted. So I guess that's one thing that has come out of this election season and political landscape. But some of the things that really stuck out to me in this training was the fact that, you know, in the last video I talked about not having a colorblind mentality of like, oh, I don't see color, I just see you as a person. Well, you don't see me as a person then if you don't see my color. And so that's kind of what I talked about in the last time. So kind of going along with that colorblind mentality, another dangerous pitfall or whatever to avoid is the fact that, you know, oh, I don't judge people. Yes, you do. And I'm talking to you. And I'm also talking to me. And I'm talking to her. Like, even humans as young as this makes judgment on people of, For her, it's more what is their physical presence like? What does their face look like? What do they smell like? Like, what do they feel like when they hold me? You know. So even infants as young as her are making judgments. It's in our DNA. Like, it's just part of our essence of who we are, is we make judgments. We have to, because caveman had to make judgments for safety, and we still do that. So I think trying to live under the notion that we don't pass judgment on people, you got to get rid of that, and you've got to understand that you make judgments. I'm going to make judgments. We all are making judgments. But what you have to be afraid of, and this is what the speaker was saying, is don't be afraid that I'm judging you. Be afraid that I don't know that I'm judging you. And to me, that was extremely powerful, because it's like, yeah. And I know that I'm making an assumption about you. You walk in the door, you're dressed a certain way, you smell a certain way, you have, you know, your presence is a certain way, your facial expressions, whatever, your hair, your clothes, your makeup, your shoes. I look at shoes. All of that, I'm passing judgment on you of what I think you are like, based on people that I have come across in my life that have shown similar attributes or similar characteristics. But what gets scary is when if I start to lump those people together, that if I have a negative encounter with somebody that has a straw hat and overalls, then the next person that I see that has a straw hat and overalls, I may not think that I'm judging them negatively, but I am. So that's what you have to be careful about, is that know and accept that people are judging you, because it's just part of our human nature. But be wary if they don't know that they're judging you, or how they're judging you, on what basis are they judging you. So I thought that was pretty powerful, and so that has kind of stuck with me. There was actually a snippet of a comedian that we saw. Is Michael Jr. Comedy is What I Do, I think was the name of the clip. It was on YouTube. And he was talking about, and I think I referenced this in the last video too, of like what you do in your life, how does that lead to your why? So it's not that you're doing this, this is what you do, but why are you doing it? And learning to understand that. But I think that's in your own, like, whether it relates to your career, whether it relates to finding a partner, raising your children, like whatever it is, like how is what you're doing getting you to your why? Or how is that leading or influencing your why of why you do these things? So I thought that was powerful as well. So, you know, thinking about what is my why, I think I live my life to try to be the best mother, to provide, to instill good values and virtues into the girls, to instill confidence and a sense of curiosity, and just to really help them form a solid foundation, so they can go forth with confidence and be empowered to do things. And that's kind of how that's my why. And so all of these things that I do, I'm doing those because that's why. This is why. This is reason number 3. Yeah. So, you know, I think it's important, you know, if you're stuck in a place where you're in a job or looking for a career change, or looking for a relationship, or not sure if this relationship that you're in is for you, like really being able to set that time aside to be introspective, whether it's journaling or making videos or whatever it is, like really question yourself of, are the things that I'm doing, are these leading to my why? And if not, then what can I do to make changes to do that? So, you know, I encourage you to challenge yourself and to look into yourself and begin to really understand who you are and why you're doing the things you're doing. The other big piece of the presentation, of the training, was looking at pieces from a book called Courageous Conversations, and I believe the author is Glenn Singleton. I have not read the book. I do plan on getting it for some professional development for work. But there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that book talks about. So I'm going to talk about these and then kind of break it down. So the first one is, in having courageous conversations, you have to be able to take risks. You also have to be able to stay engaged and be curious. You have to be able to speak your truth using I statements and from my perspective and me, so owning it. Experience discomfort. I think that is something that we don't like to do, but it's crucial and important. Listen for understanding, so intent versus impact. Expect and accept non-closure, but knowing that will you take the time to work through that, and that there's no fixing. So listening is a form of action. You can't always give advice to the person that's having a problem. You can't always try to apologize and say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really mean that. You can't try to change the fact that you offended somebody or hurt somebody. Accepting that there's not always a fix to something. So those are the pieces I think that were important. So when you're having these courageous conversations and looking at this from a if we look at this from a racial standpoint, when we have conversations about diversity, it often falls to race, right? And I would challenge you in that is that a lot of these things do stem from race, because we might be able to accept somebody because of a certain type of lifestyle change or choice or whatever. But race is something that we just have always had a difficult time accepting or understanding or knowing how to handle and deal and all of that. So if you're really wanting to grow, then you really need to take these 7 steps. You have to be able to take risks and know that there's no right way to go about this. But by being curious and asking questions, if somebody says something, if somebody makes a joke that is highly, highly offensive and you don't agree with it, you need to be able to be courageous and take the risk of saying, you know, not in my presence, or I don't accept that kind of language, or I don't find that funny. And then being curious and asking the questions of, why do you think that that's okay to say? Or why is that joke funny to you? Like, you're not being completely combative, but you're putting it back on them of like, okay, so you're going about spreading this. So why do you think it's okay? Like, where has that started for you that it's okay to share that? Or why do you think it's okay to share that with me? And doing all of this does not mean that you're going to move them from 0 to 10 in terms of like acceptance and everything. And that's not necessarily the purpose, but it's being truthful to you and owning your truth and letting people know where you stand. Because if you don't say anything, they're going to think that they're going to continue to think that it's okay. So they're going to continue to perpetuate this. But if you challenge them and say, you know what, that's not okay, I don't want to hear jokes like that, not in front of me, then the next time they might, just maybe, think before they tell another joke. And maybe it's, if anything, maybe they'll learn of what they can and can't say in front of you. So, you know, you're not necessarily changing their beliefs, but you start to make some change in that you make them think about what they're saying. And so even if they learn what's appropriate to say in front of you and what's not, you've made a change. But at the same time, they may think before they say a joke like that in front of a coworker that happens to look like you, or in front of a stranger, or in front of a friend that somebody brings for them to meet. So, you know, when you're doing diversity work, when you're trying to make change and the like, it's not a nice, neat package. You're never going to fully get closure. There's always work to be done. And just because you may feel comfortable in challenging people, that also does not mean that you're like queen or king of diversity and acceptance. Because again, you pass judgment on everyone. It's just knowing that you're passing judgment. I think for me, the hard thing is experiencing the discomfort and knowing that there's no fixing. But my curiosity is strong enough for me to kind of overpower those. But those are definitely things that I am working on, because if I offend somebody, I immediately, I either avoid it or I want to try to fix it. And that's not always what's needed. That's not always is what's appropriate. And that's been hard for me, is to understand that I can't fix everything. And then experiencing the discomfort. Like, you can't do this work, you can't grow if you always stay comfortable. You know, there's a quote that I like, that a ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what it was made for. And I think that is so true to living your life, but to doing diversity work and challenging yourself to grow. And when I say diversity work, I'm not saying like that you're doing this as a career, but like just growing yourself. I think it's important that we as human beings want to grow and want to do our own diversity work. But I think that, you know, having a ship safe in the harbor is great. You know, oh, I never get a scratch on my boat, but you're not going off, you're not seeing any adventures, you're not experiencing anything, you're not experiencing any challenges, you're not experiencing any successes, you're just staying there floating around. And I think that is profound in relating it to growing and being a more culturally competent person. I think also what's important and what came out of this is the idea that when you make an assumption of somebody and then you're surprised by it. So for me, you know, my name is Noelle Wilson, and I don't know what kind of image that might conjure up for you, but I'm assuming it probably does not conjure up a Korean American woman. Probably a Caucasian woman, I would assume. But when somebody meets me for the first time, they're probably surprised. Also, like, I had a friend in college that we became really good friends, and before I met her mom, like, I talked to her on the phone and stuff like that, because that was in the days before everybody having cell phones, so you still called landlines to talk to people. And so I would talk to her mom, and her mom was telling her, like, oh, you know, like, what does she look like? I picture her, you know, like, being, like, cute and bubbly and having blonde hair. And it was like, well, maybe the cute and bubbly part, but definitely not the blonde hair. And so being aware of, like, when you make judgments and you make assumptions of how somebody is going to be or like or whatever, pay attention to when you surprise yourself. And I think that's important to be able to acknowledge and, like, okay, let me unpack that a little bit. Like, I made the assumption that based on this name, or I made the assumption that because you chose to dress in that manner, I thought you were going to be like this. And then understanding that, nope, you have to be able to work through that, and you have to be able to take everybody at their own value, and that you may have a negative experience, like I referenced, you know, the straw hat and overalls, which I'm sure if by just sharing that image, you probably come up with an image all on your own, and it may or may not look like the same image that I have in my head based on your experiences. But it's important to understand that if you make assumptions and you are judging somebody based on the fact that they're wearing a straw hat and overalls, they may not be, and they probably will not be, exactly like that person that you had a negative encounter with. So I think I've been rambling long enough, but I wanted to be able to share this and help you all in developing your own cultural competence. And, you know, like, change starts with one person, and the next 4 years in this country, regardless of what political viewpoint you have, it's going to be a tumultuous 4 years. And so I think if we all on individual levels can take into account the work that we can be doing on ourselves and on our small circles that surround us, maybe we can make a bigger ripple effect and we can kind of start to come to a better place. You know, that's my idealism coming into play, I guess, but I mean, I can only work on myself and encourage my littles to you know, we teach acceptance. We don't teach tolerance, we teach acceptance. Accepting of themselves and accepting of others. And so I encourage you to, you know, take some of what I shared and just reflect on that and think about it for yourself and talk to your friends about it. You know, I'm sure you have friends that have similar viewpoints to you. That's an easy start. You know, hey, I heard this girl on YouTube share my video, by the way. Shameless plug, you know. And be like, what are your thoughts on this? Or, you know, we talk a lot about this, but, you know, I've never really thought about it in this way. So hopefully you'll use this as a tool. Otherwise, you just got to see a cute baby. And it's almost the new year, so I'll probably be doing some stuff about that, or, you know, some reflections or resolution. I don't really like resolutions, goal setting, we'll say. But anyway, hope that you are all doing great. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to share your comments with me. Please feel free to ask me questions, give me inspiration for other videos. You can always subscribe if you haven't, and you can always share these videos. I don't mind that either. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye!